All right. Okay, fantastic. Hi, everyone. My name is Naimisha. I'm the founder of Products by Women, a skill-based platform that connects women to job training opportunities and mentorship. Really excited to have this session with Rachel today, who's the founder of WOKEN and the CEO of WOKEN. She's going to be spending the next 1 hour talking to us about how we can kind of do a better job with really exploring our career path and really kind of unleash the talent in us and our passion in us to see how we can maximize that piece. But before we dive in, I did want to take a minute to talk a little bit about Team Together. Today is day 5 of our incredible series that we put together. Team Together really was put together so fast in the last 4 weeks. And it started off with a small idea of us saying, we want to celebrate International Women's Day, and what's a better way of celebrating than actually helping women kind of upskill and level up their technical skills, soft skills, so they can really launch businesses and excel at their workplace. And so today we are going to have another session at 6 p.m. on Clubhouse. I'm so sorry for those of you who can't join. I do have some additional invites, and I'm happy to share it with you if you send me your email. So send me your number and email me at naimisha@productsbywomen.com. With that, I do want to also say that, we have recently launched a mentorship program. Go to our website, productsbywomen.com, or follow us on Instagram. It's all Products by Women everywhere, on Twitter, LinkedIn, everywhere, and you'll get more information. Earlier this week, we had some incredible sessions like how to become a conference speaker, how to break into a FANG company, how to build a startup community, how to raise funds as a minority and woman of color, how to transitioning from product management to product marketing. And again, later today, we're going to be talking about how to launch a podcast. And tomorrow, we're going to top it off this entire series with how to build your own work website with no code. With that, I do want to pass it on to Rachel. Again, thank you so much for being here with us. For those of you who want to learn a little bit more about Rachel, we're going to be sending an email after, and also we have an amazing podcast which is going to be releasing very soon. We are a bit behind on that because of Team Together, but we'll get it out soon, so stay tuned for that. And then Rachel, feel free to take it from here, please.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so glad to meet all of you guys. And I just want to let you know that I'm going to go through lots of content today, but the chat is open on my screen. So at any point, write your thoughts, write your questions. I am looking at the chat. I'm also looking at the slides. So I'm going to dive in. I have a ton that I packed in here today. I had, an initial agenda, and then I added more. So I'm going to give you as much as humanly possible. And then, let me know along the way if you have questions. And we definitely will have time at the end as well for some Q&A. So I'm going to just dive right in. Alrighty. So super quick, my background. I started out in the finance world. I worked at Goldman Sachs and then Bridgewater. Alongside of my job, I was sort of informally being referred to friends and friends of friends. And it sort of turned into hundreds of professionals that I would chat with about their careers. And I realized that people were struggling with job search because they didn't know what career they wanted. So I realized how much I had loved doing career coaching and volunteering to do it. So I got coaching training through NYU and got certified through the ICF. And ever since, I've been coaching through various organizations as well as building my own company for the last 3.5 years. I also did a tech MBA program at NYU Stern. So that's super quick on my background. Happy to talk more about it if you guys have questions on jumping into entrepreneurship or any other questions like that. Happy to dive further. Okay. So this is just like kind of roughly a bit of the agenda for today, but I actually have even more that I added in there. I'm not going to go through it now, but I'm pretty much just going to dive straight in. So I want to just start with, why does this happen in the first place? The fact that sometimes we land in roles that aren't the best fit for us. From the get-go, we don't have the right resources. Very few students find their career services effective from the beginning of their journey. And so it's leaving many of us disengaged at work. And Gallup defines that as putting in time and energy, but feeling checked out and not aligned and fulfilled with our work. So naturally, we're job hopping, but that's a Band-Aid solution. It's not a strategic solution. And of course, because of that, we're feeling some stress and anxiety around figuring out our path. Why is all of this important? Well, we're sleepwalking through our career. We feel a purpose gap. Those are both terms from the research, and it actually limits your wealth potential. It also, as we well know, affects our physical and mental health when we're not engaged in our work. And there's costs to both companies and society at large when you're not in the right role. And, there's costs of that productivity and attrition at work. So I think you guys already know the pain points, right? But I wanted to share this because there's a system at play here. And what we want you to do is sort of take a step back and see how you can sort of have control over the system or where you land in that. And so you can sort of control your own outcomes despite what support you had or didn't have. So again, what are the benefits to finding a job you love? It sounds great in theory. Sometimes it sounds a little fluffy and unattainable, but there's actually benefits to doing it. Dale Carnegie tells us people rarely succeed unless they have fun in what they're doing. And I wholeheartedly agree, but let's look at it deeper. Studies show that when you love what you do for a living, you get better at doing it, you make more money at it, and you make more money faster. We want all these things, right? It also allows for more efficient and effective job searching. So people often think, oh, I just have to jump into the job search. But when you actually go through career exploration first, your job search becomes more efficient and faster because you know what you're targeting, why you're a fit for that role, who you need to reach out to, etc. So it seems counterintuitive because it's like, I've got to do this process before the job search, but it makes that job search more effective to narrow in faster. It also makes the career development, even easier because once you land into that ideal first role that you really, really like, the second and third and fourth role after that, it just becomes so much easier to sort of pave an organic path in a way that just feels organic. It naturally evolves from there and opportunities arise from there. It also feels better. So our clients, when they finish the career exploration process, they feel relieved and excited because you just sort of understand what excites you and what your path is and what's right for you. And that's a wonderful feeling, that certainty, that excitement, versus us feeling this anxious, unknown, uncertain feeling. It's not good. It's not a great feeling. None of us love that uncertainty feeling, right? So I'm going to show you a super quick video. Let me know if you can hear it because he says it better than I do.
Sometimes life's going to hit you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love. And that is as true for work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking. And don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking, don't settle.
Okay, so we could just keep listening to that and that would be great. But I love Steve Jobs very much. And what he says is so important because what he says is, first and foremost, don't look, don't settle, keep looking. But what he says is you'll know when you find it. And when I explain to you what career exploration actually is, that's actually an element of it, which is you're going to go through learning and reflection and you're actually going to know, you're going to feel that sense of certainty when the learning and reflection is done because you're going to have clarity. He says, you know when you find it, and I'm going to relate that back to the stuff we're going to talk about later. So, he's super motivating. I hope that was motivating to you. It's always motivating to me. So now what I'm going to do is kind of debunks some of the typical myths about how people typically approach their careers. So hopefully this is going to help you reverse some of those limiting mindsets. So first and foremost, we often operate out of a place of stress. The decisions and the outcomes of what happens when you're operating out of that place is usually not something great. When you're feeling that stress, it's really not a moment that you want to be acting on those feelings, right? And so what I'd rather you do is apply some structure. For example, if you're pursuing your job search, whenever we feel that pang of stress, what do? We probably open up the job boards, open up the job search engine, and just apply. But what I'd rather you do is when you feel that moment of stress, first of all, pause, recognize the feeling, and just say, okay, how can I make a structured process? What is my goal? How do I create some steps to get there? What would I need to do? Maybe what support do I need? Do I need a little bit of learning, right? So break it down, right? Always break it down. And that always helps me, at least, when I'm feeling that stress, so that you're not just operating on that stress, right? I usually find the outcomes and the decisions that happen from that mode is not our favorite decisions. Oftentimes people try to make career choices out of a place of security. So I need a secure path. And yes, that's true. But when you just pick a path because it's secure, it often can backfire, because we need to figure out whatever you're interested in, whatever role or path is aligned with you, that is going to be the most secure path, because you're going to want to be there. You're going to want to learn. You're going to become a leader. You're going to be the most interested, engaged person on the team. Picture any work you've been in. That's the person who's rocking and rolling, and everybody's looking to them because they're leading the way, right? So if you're just picking a path for security, but you don't want to be there, you don't enjoy it, you're not good at it, you don't want to learn, you don't want to lead, you don't want to grow, you're just going to leave. And that's not secure at all, right? After all, oftentimes people say, oh, I can't. I don't know if I can pursue this path. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I can do it. Okay, well, guess what? Before you tell yourself you can't, let's learn. What is that path? What does that role entail? What are the skills required? Who gets hired to do it, right? So give yourself the opportunity to learn about what you want and also what it entails, before you tell yourself you can or can't, pursue that or achieve that, right? We oftentimes think about our past, whether it's our past roles, past jobs, our major in college. We let that define the journey of our next steps. I'd rather you think about the story, because yes, recruiters sometimes can overjudge on our past experience. But if you explain why you're a fit for that role, why you're interested in that role, et cetera, and that story is there and your due diligence is there and it's authentic and believable and all this stuff makes sense, and you've really done your homework to have a story that is strong and authentic and clear, and again, it makes sense to you, it's going to make sense to them. And that is the candidate who gets the role. So doing that legwork up front is really, really helpful. And it's really all about the direction, and the story you tell goes such a long way. Now, your past, you've got more transferable skills than you think. And it's really about how can you leverage them for where you want to go rather than letting it hold you back. Okay. We often think about the long term. So for example, in 20 years, what's my career goal? I'd actually rather you think about the short term, because guess what? In 20, 30 years, the world's going to change. You're going to change. The industries, everything is changing way faster than we can even imagine. So yes, it's okay to say, okay, what role do I want and where could it lead? But I'd also really rather you just more over-index on the short term in the sense of what roles and companies and work and industries and problems are interesting to me to solve today, because that's going to lead to a path that you can't even predict yet, right? Rather than saying, okay, what am I going to be in any number of years where I'm going to change and the world's going to change? Oftentimes people say, oh, I'm open to anything. I'm open to these types of roles. I'm open to these types of industries. That is one of my worst sort of pet peeves, because the more open you are, the more you're opening yourself up that you might actually land in a role or industry or company that's not right for you. So we're going to talk more about how to figure out what to do when you have options, but I'd rather you get to the point where you can feel picky. If you're being open, again, you're opening yourself up to the fact that you might land in something that's not the right fit for you. And we're going to talk a little more about that, but I'd rather you figure out what's right for you and then go after it, right? Because if we're open, it means we haven't figured out which thing is best for us. Oftentimes, we only go after what we're aware of. And there's so much out there. I'm actually going to talk about this again, but there's so much out there that we don't know. So it's okay to say, I'm not sure, I don't know yet, and let other people help you. If you say, I'm considering A, B, C, and D, and see how they can help you decide between all those things, or learn and compare all those things, right? Recognize where you are, what you know, what you don't know, and really digest the information of what the opportunities are versus just going from what you're aware of. We often think of interviewing as just something we need to do well. I'd rather you think about, who do you want to talk to about what, right? Who do you want to talk to about what? Why? What problems do you want to wrestle with? What work do you want to do? Where do you want to have impact? What kind of conversation do you want to be having about what topics, about what problems, right? It's not just to check the box. If we're checking the box, maybe you'll land the role, but good job being successful at the interview, but what if you're not going to enjoy the work or anything about what you're going to do, right? So really think of it as a mirror to the job you're going to go do. We often think about just applying. Well, first and foremost, networking is the main way to get a job rather than online job boards. But rather than just applying, I'd rather you consider, how much time are you spending exploring? Do you know what you want? Do you have clarity before the applications happen, right? So oftentimes we just have to apply. That's all we're aware of. But there's so much more that goes into job search, including the research and the learning and the clarity around what's best for you, what's right for you. We often look at others around us, but guess what? You are the only one that matters in this process. You are the one who's going to wake up every day living and breathing this work. You are the one who's going to sit there maybe for a year or longer to say, I hate this, and yet I'm doing it, and I'm stuck, and blah, blah, blah. You're going to want to feel either engaged at work or disengaged at work, and you know what that feels like. And yes, we may have a family to take care of, and that's absolutely reasonable and important, but you are going to be the one living and breathing this work, and you are going to be the one, hopefully, that doesn't have regrets down the line, right? So really focus on you and how you feel, and forget everyone else, unless they serve as a source of inspiration, forget them, right? We often are fearful when it comes to career paths, and that's totally normal. I always say, replace fear with learning. Whenever you feel that anxious moment, what are you uncertain about? What could you fill in some gaps of your knowledge? What questions do you have? What answers could you gain? What information could you gain to move the needle on that certainty, on that feeling, right? So whenever you feel that anxious pang around careers, ask yourself, what's something practical that I could do that would kind of just give me a little bit more of that confidence or information, right? Kind of reverse engineer a little bit of where that feeling's coming from, because there's usually a practical action-based step you can take to make progress on it. Okay. Let's keep going. So I've got more on mindsets. And by the way, I'm looking at the chat if you guys have questions. So I want you to get rid of all preconceived notions about careers, because each of your paths is going to be so unique. And if you don't open yourself up, you may not find your unique value and contribution. So I have a mentor who founded a sex toy company, and I'm not going to tell you to go do that, but how would she have opened herself up? I think at first she was a sex therapist, right? So it's like, how would she have go to pursue that path if she felt like people were judging her, right? You've got to recognize that your unique value and place in this world might be extremely unique, and open yourself up to the possibility of figuring out what that is, even if it's creative and different. The process can take time depending on your pace. So be patient and persistent. Don't rush into the job search before feeling clear in the direction. And when I say the process, what I mean is career exploration. I'm reading this question. How do we know what kind of role to pivot to after the first job if we have acquired a diverse set of skills? So Depisha, I'm going to get into a very practical process for how to actually clarify your ideal direction. And we're actually going to do an exercise today to start reflecting on your ideal direction. So hang tight, but ask me that question again by the end if I still don't answer it. But today's going to be all about getting into the practical processes of how you can actually gain this clarity. I promise I'm getting there, but the mindset's important too. Okay. So don't only go by what you're aware of. We talked about this a little bit. The Bureau of Labor Statistics counted 160,000 unique jobs just in the US. And I'm not saying you have to learn about every single one, but the point is, if you're only aware of 5 or 10, there may be other things that are important to learn about. And I'll explain how to narrow in. Just because we're handed inefficient career support doesn't mean it has to stay that way. Make sure to take control over what support and guidance you need to feel guided. We don't go make an investment in the markets until we feel like we understand that or have an advisor to help us, right? It's the same thing with careers. Why would we go about it feeling like we're, flying blind? And feeling stuck is a choice. I meet a lot of people who make 180 career pivots. If they got a master's, they were in a very specific career path. Remember, feeling stuck is a choice. Yes, you might have invested time and money into it, but if you hate it and it's not right for you, how long are you going to wait, right, to open yourself up and find that right journey, right? It's just a matter of time, but consider the time you would allow yourself to afford to feel, one way or the other way, right? Remember, drivers lead to outcome, right? So if you're operating out of that place of stress or fear, that's going to lead to the outcomes. So remember, when you're feeling those feelings, try not to take action when you're feeling those things, especially as it relates to careers and job searching. Oftentimes we sort of talk about something, but we kind of know deep down we should do something else. Really, it's not comfortable to rip the Band-Aid off. It's not comfortable to tolerate uncertainty and to navigate uncertainty and to go through career exploration and to mine through all your options and to deal with these questions. It's not fun. And that's why we just spend our time in job search, because it's that quick dopamine hit, right? It's not as fun or comfortable. But if it's the important stuff you got to do and you got to sort through it and you got to figure it out, it's a matter of when are you going to feel courageous and comfortable enough to deal with some of these uncertain feelings, right? And just know that the moment you face that uncertainty, you can get to certainty, right? It's just a matter of acknowledging where you are and saying, I'm going to go on this road and I'm going to figure it out. And that's going to be weird. It's not going to be a quick answer, but I'm going to go down that road, right? So it takes confidence and courage to even begin that journey. I always say you want to land in the right ballpark, right? So sometimes I'll meet somebody who went to go be an accountant, but really they want to go be in marketing. And it's like, we're on, A and Z here. So what I want you to do is, yes, we're going to figure out how to clarify your direction, but I'd rather you think about how can I get as close as humanly possible to the roles and industries that I think I'm interested in. If you just approached it that way, you would be doing a great job. And I'm going to give you even more than that. But I want you to think about how can I get as close as humanly possible to what I think I'm interested in. I also want you to remember your options. When it comes to industries, for example, we often think of like just a few companies that we're aware of, but every single industry has reputable, great companies, right? So don't close yourself off and just say, oh, the bigger companies are in finance or in consulting. Every single sector has something reputable in that sector, right? So this is specific to industries. All right, so here's the framework, how to think about your next work opportunity. So first and foremost, it's what I call function. It's what you do all day. It's the tasks, it's the skills, it's the projects, it's the activities of what you do all day, okay? It's sort of the verbs, right? It's the actions. The second piece is content. And I want to separate these two things because, for example, if you're in product or if you're an engineer or if you're in whatever role, you could apply that to any set of content. You could be in the education world, you could be in fashion, you could be in finance, you could be talking about any sort of content. And the third piece is environment. What does it look and feel like? What's the size of the company, the pace, the culture, etc. So I'm going to show you how this translates. Function is essentially role. Content is essentially industry. Environment is culture, right? These are the words we hear, but we've got to bring it back to the root of what that thing really is talking about. It's talking about what we do all day versus the content of what we apply those skills towards, and then the environment. So we're going to dive into an exercise. So give me a thumbs up or tell me when you're ready and you've got a notebook or you've got a Word document, and I am going to guide you through some prompts. And I am actually going to sort of talk you through questions from each of these three pieces of framework so you can start thinking about how this all applies to you. Great. Everyone's ready? I love it. I love it. Okay. So I'm going to sort of talk and prompt you through it, but I want you to just free write what comes to your head as I'm talking. Okay. So the first section is, what do you love doing? It's the functions, okay? So think of some experiences you've chosen to take on. They could be projects within work or outside of work, okay? And this could go back as far as to college. It doesn't matter, but I want you to think of things you chose to do. And I want you to start to think about the verbs of what you were doing in these projects or these experiences? Were you researching? Were you writing? Were you consulting? Were you advising? Were you teaching? Were you building? Were you drawing? What are the verbs? Break it down, right? And then I want you to look at that list and I want you to add more to it. So make sure that list becomes somewhat comprehensive. So you start to keep listing verbs, tasks, projects, action phrases, and you look at this list and it's comprehensive at that point of verbs and sort of things you really love doing. And, And so again, this is something you can keep doing after, but I'm just going to give you some prompts to think about. So another prompt I want you to ponder on is, if somebody were to ask you to do a project today, what would it be? Now, this could be your current boss, or it could just be anyone. Pretend you're just like in white space and there's a fake boss at a fake company and you've got no role title. Somebody says, do this project. What would you choose for them to even ask you to do? What would you be looking into? Would you be analyzing something, building something, improving something, thinking about something, building a product? What would it be that you would choose to do right now, project-wise? Another prompt, think of times you helped others or what others come to you for help with. What do you enjoy helping others with? So I'm going to give you 10, 20 seconds. Tell me when you've wrapped up. I know there's a lot that I'm giving you there, but I want to move to the second section. And again, this is just giving you food for thought, how to continue thinking about this after the call. Let me know when you're ready for the second part, which is content. Cool. All right. Second part, content. Okay. So think about topics you read about, topics you listen to or choose to listen to, whether it's on a podcast, on the news, maybe you read a magazine, maybe you click on certain articles on social media. What are those things that you tend to click on more than others? What are some problems in the world you feel need solving? There is a slew of them. We know it, right? This world, oh God, we need a lot of fixes in this world. What are some problems you care about? Things that are broken, things that aren't right, things that need improvement, things that are behind the times, things that have impact, problems that you care about. Why, right? Doesn't matter why, but I want you to tell me the problems you care about. Topics you love learning about, topics you love talking about with others, as well as products and services you find interesting. Maybe it's a digital product or a physical product. Maybe you've used it or you heard of a friend using it. What are some products and services, whether new or old, that you really think are interesting, innovative, impactful, something, right? That's the content section. All right, so I'm gonna move to section 3. Again, this is all food for thought, and you're going to continue the reflection after this, okay? So do you want a small, medium, or large environment, right? Small and scrappy, large and structured, or maybe somewhere in the middle? Do you want a fast-paced, medium-paced, slow-paced environment? Do you want to travel or not, maybe a certain percent? Do you want to be remote or in person, or maybe a blend? We're all discovering what that looks and feels like. What are the traits of the people you want to work with, right? What are the values of the people around you? So I'll give you a little bit of time to think about this one, because this is super important, and it's one of the most underestimated pieces of what makes somebody happy in a role, is that culture around us. Does it align with our values? Do we get along with those people? And I want you to close your eyes and just picture, what does it look and feel like? Because sometimes our vision can actually help us see, is it a big corporate environment? Is it a small, scrappy team? You can actually sometimes see it. What does it look and feel like? Okay, so that's my very, very quick exercise. I'm going to teach you how to continue reflecting on all of this. But this is step 1, is to begin reflecting on each of these pieces in the framework, okay? So how do you go from here? How do you continue from here? First and foremost, it's motivation and accountability. Whenever you're ready to decide to go on this career exploration journey, it takes commitment. It really does. It takes, you saying, you know what? I am going to do career exploration. I am going to commit time to it. It does take a little bit of time and effort, right? It takes commitment. That is step one. Step two is to continue doing what I just had you to do, which was reflecting. So I want you to keep reflecting on those 3 pieces of the framework. After you do that, you're actually going to start to translate the function, which is section 1, into potential roles. You're going to translate that section 2 content into potential industries. And then the environment kind of speaks for itself, right? Once you narrow in on how to translate your interest into potential roles and industries, then you have options. And then you're going to learn more about those options. So unlike a career assessment that just spits out the answer for you, we've got options, and they are just simply a starting point of how we should learn about those options, okay? So then we are going to do research, networking as a way of learning, experiential learning, and reflection and iteration. So you guys are product folks. You know about design thinking. This is a very similar process, right? It's learn, reflect, iterate, right? Pivot. Learn, reflect, iterate, pivot, right? And you keep going through that. You keep going through that until you get to the point of feeling clear and confident about which option is best for you. And what you're doing in this process, you're actually comparing and contrasting and prioritizing the options, right? Because if you have options, you are, there's differences, and you need to figure out which one is best for you and why. Okay. And that is what's going to lead you to feel clear and confident about the right direction. And that's what's going to lead you to an easy job search and finding a role that you're going to love. So it's intention plus intuition. This is what, that image from design thinking. It's messy. And then there's clarity, right? And so intentionally leaning into your interests, learning, reflecting, iterating, that's what leads to the clarity and confidence. This is the secret sauce, okay? Now, if you still have options, you haven't done enough learning or reflection. Because remember, if there's options, they are different. How do they differ? And which one is better or worse for you and why, right? So you're going to have an affinity to the certain functions of what that job entails. And you've got to keep comparing and contrasting to see which one is best for you and why. So I'm going to talk very quickly about job search, okay? And then we'll open up to Q&A at some point quickly. But I'm just going to talk very quickly about job search. So first and foremost, are you being transactional versus considering what conversations you'd enjoy having with whom and about what? We kind of talked about this, right? But if you are just checking the box, plugging away, being transactional versus thinking about what problems do I want to solve? Who do I want to talk to? What topics do I want to work on? What impact do I want to have? Remember the root and the fundamentals of a job and the work that we do, right? And remember, these interviews and networking is a conversation about certain work, and it is a mirror to the work we're going to go do. Are you plugging away heads down, or are you reflecting on how it's going and iterating your strategy? So remember, if we keep sorry, it's very loud here in New York City. Okay, if you keep just plugging away with the same tactics and the same strategies, but it's not working, how are you going to expect different results? So remember, there are ways of digesting what are the best practices, what are the strategies in job search that are going to work. And remember to pivot your strategies to keep finding those best strategies. And are you clear in what role in industry is the best next step, or are you applying to a multitude? Whenever you're applying everywhere and anywhere, your brain is going to feel everywhere and anywhere. And you're probably going to maybe, get interviews, but not land in the interview. If you're continuously tailoring your story to different companies and different roles, which one's the right story? Which story do you want to tell? Which story is going to resonate, right? Figure out that clarity first, and the job search becomes just smooth sailing from there. Remember, if the career search isn't fun, your job probably won't be either, okay? Right? So the networking should be enjoyable. The interview should be enjoyable. What do you want to talk about? With whom and why? Remember, right? This is a mirror into what we're going to go do. How do we help? Well, we help you through exactly this process pretty much that I just described to you. We teach you what to do, guide your approach at each step, give you a workspace to track your learnings, and accountability and a support from a coach. So that is what WOKEN is all about. I want to tell you a super quick story before I wrap up. Man A, he's got interest in the human mind. He applies to graduate school. He completes his program. He goes on to be a psychologist, a researcher, a thought leader. He leads a happy, secure, fulfilled life. Man B, he's got interest in the human mind. He applies to school. He drops out, doesn't finish. He works chooses to work in a family business, feels stuck in a toxic career he hates, never re-pursues his interests, feels a daily physical drain and stress, did not ever reach his earning potential. Imagine the impact that has on his life, his emotional, physical well-being, his wealth potential, etc. Okay? There is a difference, right? Look at man A and man B. And guess what? This is the story of my father. My father is man B. And this is why I do this. Because important choices can make or break the trajectory of your life and how you feel every day and your wealth potential and all of these things, using your skills in the way that you should, right? And so this is why I care about this. And I want you to think about, for 5 seconds, I want you to think about, picture the ideal story. I want you to picture your journey as man A or female A or gender A. And I want you to think about, for 10 seconds, what is it going to look and feel like in that wonderful vision of you going after everything you want, you achieve it, you succeed it. How does that affect your personal life? What does that holistic vision look and feel like? And then on the flip side, I want you to think about this, because guess what? I don't want you to feel it. I want you to think about this for 5 seconds. What would it look like if you were in the man B position or female B? Okay. What would that worst version feel like? What would it look like if you limited yourself, if you didn't pivot, if you didn't explore? What would that look like for your personal journey, for that holistic vision of your life? What would it mean for the personal impacts that it has on your life? I don't want you to ever feel it other than right now for 5 seconds, right? And that way we never feel that again. But I want you to feel it now so that you remember this and the road less traveled and how, remember, learning has no cost. You can go learn, you can explore, you can clarify your direction. There's really no harm in doing that. It's only good outcomes that you can reap from that point. So remember, what we're doing over here is we're waking up the world to remember you can and should find a job you love. And we believe that every working professional deserves career support at every single juncture. So this is us. Reach out. Would love to hear from you guys. Would love to support you. We have a free career coaching call. Would love to chat with you and, hear how we can help you. And I'm here, till 11. Happy to stick around. Happy to answer questions. And by the way, Latessa, we're supporting Latessa. If you feel like you want to write something in the chat, tell us about your WOKEN experience, because she's rocking and rolling with this journey, so she can help you guys understand what it feels like. But yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions at all, and I'm happy to answer them. Oh, I can't hear you. I don't know if that's everybody else. Let me maybe stop.
Oh, wait. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we're good.
Oh, yeah, awesome. I just want to start by saying that this was such an incredible WOKEN session. Thank you for doing that. I'm sure everybody's going to be going to agree here. And on our Slack channel, people are saying you're amazing, so that's great. I have a question in terms of, like, what if somebody is just in the middle, right in the middle of trying to figure out what that piece looks like for them, right? Like, they are stuck in a job, and they are in the process of it. I mean, I'm just describing myself, but are in the process of exploring something that they're really passionate about. How should one kind of navigate that situation?
So you're saying if they're just in the midst of the exploration process? Right.
Yeah. So do you, like, how does one navigate? Like, it's like a lot of times I'm like sitting and actually thinking, like, should I go full time? Should I just do this? Should I follow my passion? Should I just do that, jump into that piece? But
and there's different ways of going about it, right? Because a lot of our clients are working, and you can do career exploration on the side of your job, right? Or maybe you're not working, in which case I would very much encourage anybody to say, well, guess what? That's an opportunity to go through exploration and strengthen your job search afterwards. But the point is, like, if we're all already on this professional journey one way or another. So there's no better time than now. I mean, the earlier, the better. So it's like, if you are working, just sort of tack this on to on top of your job. You can go at whatever pace you want. But the point is, when our clients go through this, if you sort of sit down and do this work 2 or 3 times during the week, you could have clarity in 2 or 3 months. Like, there's a practical approach here. So it doesn't have to take forever. You just have to decide, okay, I want to commit to learning and exploring and comparing and getting my questions answered and networking and just working through it, right? So it's about commitment to that journey and deciding when you're ready to go on that journey. But yeah, we're all kind of in the midst of it to a certain extent. It's just, do you commit to taking it to the length of saying, I'm going to get to the finish line. I am going to get clarity, and here's how I'm going to do it. And then, by the way, this is something you actually can do time and time again. So say you land in a great role that you love, and then you're ready to move on in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, you can actually come back and sort of do this again, right? And so you actually can keep doing it throughout your career to really keep strengthening the clarity time and time again, because like I said, you're going to change, the world's going to change, your opportunities are going to change. So you can essentially sort of like keep going through this as a way of figuring, like, whenever you feel like you're at a transition point, at a juncture, you can come back to this and you can say, all right, this is a process where I can gain some clarity and then go pursue and execute and find and search and apply, right? It's really just about allowing yourself to explore before you sort of, apply, right? Because the minute you apply, you're opening yourself up to, they may interview me and they may offer me something, which in theory sounds good until you're in it, if it's bad, right? And so we've got to uncover what's going to be great. How do we figure that out before we get there, before we apply? And that's kind of a weird concept, because oftentimes people say, oh, I'm only going to know once I get there. Well, are there ways you can learn about what that thing really looks and feels like before you get there, right? That's our goal.
Yeah, I do want to again mention to everybody out here, feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand or drop your questions. Rachel's here with us for the next 15, 20 minutes, so she'll be happy to answer your questions. But Rachel, while people are kind of dropping their questions or raising their hands, I wanted to ask you, because this is a product group, Gabriella briefly spoke about your entire process of how you put together, Google Sheets and monetize and, build the product itself. Can you talk to us a little bit about how your journey at WOKEN got started? Like, because you actually left your job at Goldman Sachs, right? Yes. Goldman Sachs, and then,
I should do a better job of explaining this. My journey is very much part of why I now can help others with it, because I was trying to clarify my own path. It took me about 6 years to do that until I felt super clear about what I wanted to do. And so now I help people do that in 3 months. But because I was trying to figure it out, I then reflected and said, okay, what did I do well? What did I not do well? How can I package this up into a way that becomes easy, manageable, and maybe even fun for somebody to go do? And so it's relevant to everything. So like, I spent these years just trying to figure out what I wanted. But guess what? Of course, there's not much support around us to do it. I was doing what everybody did, which was randomly talking to mentors and doing a little bit of this and trying it out and doing some research. But when you do it kind of ad hoc over the years, it's not as good as when you do it in a compact 3-month focus and just get it done. So that's a big of what I do and why it works so well, because you sort of commit and you do it in a focused time frame. But yeah, basically my journey was like this attempt at figuring it out. 6 years later, I realized I loved helping people with career exploration, but I also loved scale and systemization and productization and digitization. And when I combined those two things, it was like, oh, okay, how can I help people with careers by making that accessible, maybe through technology? And that was the beginning of the journey. And so that to me is my mission and whatnot. So Depeja, I know you have a question as well. How do we call on you? Yes. Or you can unmute. Okay.
Hi, Rachel. How are you?
Good, good.
So my question is actually twofold. So my first question was that I have a multitude of skill sets. So I started my career journey in HR. I was in talent acquisition. I worked for a couple companies in New York. And then I pivoted into tech. So I did a postgraduate program and I pivoted into tech. So I've been in this role for about 2 years now. So I'm trying to pivot into my next role in tech, either at my company or outside my company. So I've started exploring, is just trying to figure out where I kind of fit in.
Yeah.
I have certain skill sets, but they're very unique skill sets. Some of them are very unique. Some can apply across other companies.
Yeah.
But I feel confused as to where to look or what to look for.
Yeah. I think, look, having a breadth of skills is awesome, but I'd rather you think about like which of those skills you enjoy using and which roles most utilize that thing. So I always think about a role like a pie chart. Right? When you're learning, when you're going through the networking to learn about a role, this is a great question you guys can ask in your informational interviews. You can say, and by the way, most people, we typically ask, oh, what's a day in the life? And nobody knows how to answer that question. So here's a way you can ask the question. You can say, if your role was a pie chart, can you sort of give me the pieces of that pie and what % of time you spend in each of the core buckets? Because any given role usually has between 3 and 6 core high-level categories of where they spend their time. And that will help you get a real picture of, okay, if you're considering roles A, B, what are the differences between what those roles actually do all day versus the skills you are great at and the skills you enjoy doing? And then you're kind of doing this compare and contrast between what you're hearing about the roles versus what you know you like doing, right? So that's what you're doing, is you're learning about yourself and you're learning about what's out there simultaneously. And going through that process is what's going to help you to say, okay, role A sounds really cool. Role B actually doesn't. And you got to just keep going through that learning and reflection over and over again. And you're probably going to learn about new and different things, right? And you're going to rule out some options and you're going to lean in closer to some other options. And so it's a very fluid process. But if you simply focus on learning plus reflection in order to learn about yourself and learn about what's out there, in order to compare and contrast and prioritize, that is what's going to lead you to figuring out which role, which industry, which environment is going to be the best fit for you. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Cool. So Gianna says, as an early year university student, would you have recommendations as how we may begin thinking about our professional careers and how we can set measurable goals? Yes. Okay. So you're just in university now. Okay. So what I would think about, Gianna, with your school experience is figuring out what classes, what clubs, what internships. College is one of the best times to just dive in and build. I always say college kind of has no rules. I mean, they probably do, but they have no rules in the sense of, oh, you can go create a club, or you can just build a project, or you can go, pick an elective, or you can start a side self project with your friends, or whatever. You can shadow somebody, you can do an internship, you can do so much stuff. And what I want you to do is figure out, what are you interested in sort of doing, building, working on, learning, and go either join a club or start a club and figure out how to get your hands dirty. And every single semester I would ask yourself, okay, what did I enjoy last semester? And what can I do differently, this semester to either lean in closer or try something else? So this iterative process, by the way, you can do it every single semester. There's 8 semesters in if you're doing fall and spring, right? So imagine doing that 8 times. And by the way, this is the same concept for careers. You're trying it and you're reflecting. You're trying it and you're reflecting. And you're saying, how do I reflect on what just happened? Meaning, what was that job like? What was that internship like? What was that club like? What was great? What wasn't great? What did I like learning about? What did I not like learning about? And how can I use that to inform my next step and my next decision of what it is that I try, right? So you're trying. Now, Gianna, I mean, you can also, of course, go through everything that I just explained. You can do career exploration, and I would encourage you to do that, especially before you job search. So internships in the summer are a good way of trying things out, but just make sure you might only have 2 or 3 internships. That's a limited view, right? So leverage the internships to network with people across the company, right? Learn about all the different roles around you, not just the team you're on. And so you can do career exploration the same way a professional would, right? So really, I have helped people who are a young working professional, an undergrad, a graduate student, a mid-career, a late career. You can do this process at any point in time. And by the way, the process doesn't change. It's really the same concepts, because it's how do we explore? How do we figure out what our options are? How do we figure out what our questions are? How do we get those questions answered in order to gain clarity one way or another, right? The clarity might be, oh, that sounds great, or that doesn't sound great. Who knows what will come? But that process is the same, right? Hopefully that helps, Janet. Let me know if you have any other questions, and I'm happy to answer anyone else's questions. Feel free to, oh, Tapisha, you've got another question. I can't see everybody. Oh, Deeksha raised her hand. Namisha, let me know if you can help me with this.
Yeah.
Oh, Deeksha.
I am.
Oh, and Bianca, I see. Well, guys, write it in the chat as well, but also feel free to unmute and dive in, and I'll tackle it both ways.
I think Deeksha has a question. Deeksha, do you want to unmute yourself?
Or Bianca, I see your hand is raised as well. Feel free to unmute.
Yeah. Are they not able to unmute themselves? I'm just confused.
Oh, I don't know. Let me see. Hopefully. Are you guys able to unmute or no? Tell us in the chat, or also write your question in the chat as well.
Just put it in the chat, guys.
Happy to read the questions if you want to.
While Deeksha and Bianca are doing that, Rachel, I had a question for you. So, talk to us a little bit about WOKEN and the services that you actually provide at WOKEN. How can someone reach out to you? I did put your chat, like mentorship hours, in the chat box so people can reach out. But talk to us a little bit about what you're doing. Where do you see yourself, not in 5 years, but like in the next 1 year from now?
Well, so WOKEN it's a 3.5 year, although prior to that, I was actually doing coaching even for years before that. But, we have doubled down on product actually. And so we have been really focusing on making sure our platform is great. And so now the next year for us is all about growth. And what we want to do is help every single professional. So you guys are here. Each of you might have questions about your next steps. I want to make career coaching accessible and affordable for anybody in a transition moment. That is my goal. And so that's what I'm sort of working on for the next year, is how can we find professionals who need our support? And yeah, that's pretty much my goal at this point. But yeah, let me know, guys, if the unmute was working. And if not, type your questions in the chat. I don't know why I can't unmute. Or let me see if I can. Or if I can help you.
No.
Oh, no, I can't.
I think they have to.
Oh, let's see. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't let me unmute. But if you guys want to unmute yourself, go for it.
So I think Deeksha just dropped her question in the chat box.
You have a certain skill and you think you're good at it, but you're not really sure if it's what's required. How do you go about assessing it? So it sounds like you're trying to understand what skills are actually required for the role you're looking for. Networking is a really great way of doing it. So remember that networking is a part of that career exploration process. You can ask somebody, who typically gets hired for this role, or what skills do you look for, or what courses or certifications are really helpful in, job searching for this role, or can you give me some examples of types of people who have been hired and the roles they've had in the past, or what are some top skills you think about when you're assessing candidates, right? You can almost ask the same question in different ways, but make sure you're really specific. And you can pretty much just ask flat out, what skills are super important for this role? What skills are required? What skills are a must have, when you're hiring, when you're interviewing? I would just leverage networking to ask that very question pretty much. Hopefully that answers your question, but let me know in the chat if it didn't. I think networking and informational interviews are one of the best ways of answering all of the questions you guys have. So you can always leverage that. And usually people are very, very open to chatting as long as you're telling them you hope to learn from them and you're telling them, what it is you want to learn about. So, okay, when you say required, you mean level of skills. Okay, That's a really good question. So again, I would ask these people, because the thing about networking is you can get that realistic nuance behind the scenes, paint the picture, and that's what you can do by talking to people. And by the way, you should be talking to more than one professional to understand the patterns, not just talking to one person. But you can ask them that exact question. You can say a few things. Number one, what level of skill do you look for? Is it basic? Is it, mediocre, or is it advanced? You can literally say that. You can also say, is there a way you can give me an example of how skilled somebody is in this? Say it's Excel. You could say, can you give me an example of the types of things on Excel that person would need to know how to do? You could phrase it that way. What would the person need to be comfortable with in that skill, in that system, or, whatever it is? Or you can also say, do you assess this skill during the interview process? Sometimes there's like a hands-on project or something like that. You can say, what might a sort of hands-on technical interview look like? You can say, how do you assess technical skills, either through a technical interview or through conversation? You can also say, what level of skill set do you expect somebody to come in at this level of role? What should they be comfortable with within that skill set, right? So the bottom line here is, be as specific as you need to be as honest as you need to be. When you're networking and you're doing informational interviews, these questions are fully valid for you to ask. There's, no reason not to ask these things. These are not wrong things to ask by any means. And so as long as you're approaching it saying, I'd love to learn from you, I'm considering this path, I'm pursuing this path, just be careful when you're networking with job search. That's a little bit different, how you phrase things. People get a little finicky around networking with job search because they may be able to help you, they may not, so as long as you approach it and say, I'd love to learn from you, here are my questions, do you have 15 minutes to chat, say it that way. And usually people are willing and can, and by the way, talk to more than one person, right? Because if you talk to 5 professionals and ask the same question to 5 different people, then you'll get a really strong picture of the answers of what you need to know. And just be as specific in how you phrase that question to get the answers you need. But everything you're asking here in the chat is a fully valid thing to ask that professional, if that makes sense. Hopefully that answers your question. And let me know if anyone else has questions in the chat. I know a few of you raised your hands, but I can't seem to unmute you guys. So feel free to write in the chat.
And, I just quickly want to jump in there, Rachel, and say to Diksha that, there are a bunch of skill assessment tools which exist these days where you can actually go and take tests and understand where you kind of fall and what skills you need to kind of improve. We are developing such tools at Products by Women as well. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any more questions there. And so I think that's a great place. And also, when you go to employers, a lot of times they put out skill assessment tests or assessment forms, which helps you get a better sense of where you stand before you are actually asked to come on to different rounds of interviews as well. With that, Rachel, we are left with like 3 minutes more. So in the interest of time, I want to start kind of wrapping up if there are no more questions coming in. Before we do go, I do want to ask where people can reach out to you, connect with you if they have any questions or want to explore their path itself.
Yeah, I'm going to throw this slide back up on the screen because it's literally sitting on my screen. But this is our website. This is our email. This is our free coaching call. This is all of our social media channels. So check us out. Get in touch. We're also on the Products by Women Super Peer Mentorship Platform, which is the same type of thing. I do a free call with anybody who wants to chat about their career. And get in touch. And hopefully this was helpful, you guys. And I'm here and would love to help. So definitely reach out, okay? Thanks for having me, guys. Oh, you're on mute again, I think.
Sorry, I keep doing that. I'm on my phone. I'm connected from my phone, so I keep going back and forth. But thank you, everybody. We are going to be back at 6 p.m. With how to launch a podcast. So for those on Clubhouse, though, For those of you who are interested, please feel free to kind of jump in there at 6 p.m. There will be an email notification which is going to reach you soon. So stay tuned for that. And with that, Rachel, have a great weekend and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.